What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the newest edition of the MEAC More here on the HBCU Sports YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, Chris Stevens. Hopefully, you all are doing well out there this hotter than hell Wednesday. It's been a stretch of hot days across the country. I don't know about where you guys are, but in Wilmington, Delaware, yesterday, we hit 100 for the first time since 2012. And I'm trying to I try to remember where I was in 2012, and then it dawned on me. I quit a newspaper job. So, that summer was a hot one for me because I don't want to tell the whole story. In fact, I'll let you guys subscribe to my personal YouTube channel. Let me put that in the chat really quickly. Just to let you guys know that you can find me on other forms of YouTube. I also have a music podcast called On the Groove Line. You can find that on YouTube as well. But this YouTube, Chris Stevens Writes, that's where, oh man, I messed the damn URL up. Let me try that again. See, that's what happens when you type too fast. All right, there we go. So this is the real one. This one has my full name spelled out. But yes, this is the YouTube channel where I talk about journalism, music, movies, all of that stuff. And well, actually, music podcast is On the Groove Line. Shouts out to TMB checking in. Shouts out to HBCU Band Talk. Big up them Wildcats. Thank you all for tuning in. Got a packed show for you guys today. Also, this episode of the MEAC More with your boy Chris Stevens is sponsored by the second annual HBCU Sports Awards, coming to you Saturday, July 26th. Time to be determined. Place, well, it's going to be here on YouTube and Facebook. We'll be honoring the best and brightest of 2024, 2025, and this is going to serve as a bridge as well. We'll be winding down our coverage of everything 2024-25 and beginning our 2025-26 coverage with the HBCU Sports Awards, which means basically we're going to start getting into the nuts and bolts of football media days, any other sports of interest. We still got some hires and some transfers going on. We're going to talk about those in this episode as well. So thank you guys for tuning in. Greatly appreciate y'all as always. And we're going to get started today with a little bit of basketball news. Howard University has agreed to play in something Duke is calling the Brotherhood Run. This will be happening November 22nd and November 23rd at Cameron Indoor Stadium, one of the cathedrals of college basketball. And it'll be Duke, Howard, and Niagara. Niagara, of course, is coached by Greg Paulus, a former Duke basketball player. Duke is coached by, of course, John Shire. And Howard is coached by Kenny Blakeney, who, of course, also went to Duke. And this is what Coach Blakeney had to say in a statement released by the university. We are honored to take part in the inaugural Brotherhood Run, hosted by Duke University under stewardship of John Shire, whose leadership represents the next chapter of a storied legacy. This gathering of Duke alumni is less a reunion, more of a reflection of the values that we carry and the values we carry and the paths that we have chosen to walk. So I find that very, very interesting because, it's always good to get your schools, some publicity, and it doesn't get much bigger than Howard playing a game at Cameron Indoor Stadium. Shouts out to TMB. He said, wow, a whole Duke reunion basketball games just happened to go on. Well, Coach Blakeney said he's not calling it a reunion. He's just calling it, a gathering. But this is huge for Howard. I mean, we talk about this all the time, how we don't know how good our kids are going to be until they get up against, a next tier in competition. And for basketball especially, we're starting to see the playing field narrow and be leveled out just a little bit. I mean, there's still a wide gap between the schools that get 5 stars, the schools that have NIL collectives and all of that. But it's still nice that our schools get to at least try to see what they can do against some of these big schools. I mean, we can look at the Norfolk State women last year. Norfolk State women had a winning record against the SEC. If they had played a SEC schedule, they would have been, one of the top 3 or 4 seeds in the tournament. Everything prorated out, of course. But I think Howard, and I think what Coach Blakeney is trying to do, because give him this. He's trying his hardest to make sure Howard stays relevant in the conversation of HBCU basketball and HBCU sports. I mean, even though Howard does a really good job of that on their own with their other sports, but he lost Blake Harper this year. Blake Harper was, without a doubt, the most transcendent HBCU MEAC basketball player in recent memory. Like, that kid did everything. He led the MEAC in scoring. He was up there in rebounds. He was up there in assists. I mean, you don't get players like that every day. And in this new landscape, you get a player like that, you don't keep him every day either. So I get what Coach Blakeney's trying to do. He's trying to show these recruits and kids that are on the fence that, hey, you can still see, you can still play Duke, you can still play Niagara, you can still play, Big Ten school X. The Pac-12 ain't even a thing no more. I'm sorry about that. I was about to say Pac-12. You can say that you can play the AC. You can play AC School B, or Big East C, or something like that. Like, we schedule hard. We don't schedule cream puffs. We don't schedule cupcakes. We play hard here, and I get that's what Coach Blakeney is trying to do. Oh, Miss Mac with a little bit of a fair question here. Duke wants to see which top players they can poach or give Howard an embarrassing loss. I mean, I can't disagree. I can't disagree. I mean, we see it all the time. I mean, I think what it is now is that the veil is off. The facade is down. It's a college NCAA. The NCAA has admitted, for lack of a better word, that this is indeed professional sports. And this isn't, in fact, a dirty game. Like, it's been a dirty game for 40 years, for 50 years. Remember, one of these previous episodes, I told you guys about the time that Moses Malone, the late great Moses Malone, his mom one day drove up with a Chrysler Imperial, and she was a single mother working at a meat packing plant. And as much as I know about cars, the Chrysler Imperial in 1974 was not going to be purchased on a meat packing plant salary. So where did the Chrysler Imperial come from? It came from one of these recruiters. And then, of course, we have the SMU Pony Excess 30 for 30. If you haven't watched that, that's the best one in the series to me, because it sort of forecasted where we ended up with House versus NCAA. Bottom line. And Ken Rashad made this point last week. Ed O'Bannon deserves a ton of credit for suing the NCAA, because all the NCAA had to do was just let these kids make some money off of the video games. It's really that simple. But the NCAA decided to play hardball, and they forgot that the courts eventually are going to hear this stuff, and they're going to be like, well, why aren't these kids making money? Why are you guys making billions? Why are they not taking home anything? And the NCAA is twiddling their fingers like DJ Academics that one time when he was about to get run up on by the Migos at the BET Awards. Just a whole lot of, so the NCAA had to stop the cat. They said, okay, all right, we admit it. We can legally pay these kids. We can legally pay these kids. Now, don't get mad when it becomes free agency 2.0. And that's pretty much what this is. These kids now can go and do what they want, go where they want, even if they don't get paid, but they're obviously going to get paid by Power Fives. It's clear. I mean, again, we talked about this ad nauseum. Nigeri Kennedy, who is a great pitcher. She started her career at Stanford, and Stanford is one of the top institutions in the country for academics. Texas Tech done paid that girl $2 million to pitch a softball, and she's pretty doggone good at it. So, I mean, we have reached the point now where, yes, college athletics is tantamount to professional athletics. Free agency, you get to recruit, you get to woo these kids, you get to sell them on something. It is what it is. I mean, and it's going to hurt HBCUs. I mean, it was already hurting HBCU. We were already hurting before, the House settlement. I mean, it just was that you couldn't say anything about it because you didn't want to come off as a hater. But now you can say something about it because now it's out in the open. Now everybody can say, all right, we're going to pitch this kid. We're going to see if he wants a car or a sponsorship here, or we can put literally a stacker 15 in his pocket and say, all right, come play for us. And nobody can complain about it because it's all legal now. It is all legal now. So I think what Coach Blakeney and a lot of other HBCU athletic coaches are trying to do is by scheduling these tough games and tough competitions is trying to show kids that are interested in attending HBCUs to say, all right, we know, we know what the game is, but we can't afford to pay y'all like Power Fives can, but you can still get that same Power Five exposure. And you'll still get to be around your people. You'll still get to have a great education. You'll still get to party. You'll still get to have a good time. I think that's part of the thing that is going to be hard for HBCUs to sell is that so many of these schools, these Power Fives, they just overwhelm you with their resources. I mean, they have it. I mean, it's like the great prophet and poet Clifford Harris Jr. once said, "It ain't tricking if you got it." And these Power Fours, they got it in spades. I mean, HBCUs are gonna hurt, but mid majors are gonna hurt as well too. Mid majors are absolutely gonna hurt. Mid major PWIs, like teams in the OVC, the Big South, and the Coastal, the MAC, America East, Northeast Conference, Conference USA, the Sun Belt. Is the Sun Belt still a thing? But yeah, a lot of these conferences that aren't the Power Four, they're gonna get hurt too. They're absolutely going to get hurt. So I don't think that HBCUs should feel bad about it. But what I do think our HBCUs need to do at the D1 level is really come up with a comprehensive plan to sort of combat this, whatever that looks like, in terms of saving our institutions, as well as trying to maintain some level of competitiveness at the NCAA Division I level, if that's what we choose to do. And there's no shame in Division II, by the way. I mean, I've said this before. I've been concerned about Delaware State athletics for many a year. And while we're trying bravely to keep this D1 thing up, I would prefer we go to the CIAA. I would. I just feel like it's safer. We get, there's a way you can save money and you can still be highly competitive at a collegiate level. It's just not going to be, oh, wow, the MEAC championship game is on ESPN2 at 11 a.m. I will never forget that. It's been 20 years, and I'm still mad that the MEAC men's basketball championship game was coming on at 11 a.m. because I was in Richmond, Virginia. Quick story time. I was in Richmond. I was finishing up my time as a Delaware State student and a student reporter covering the MEAC tournament at the late great Richmond Coliseum, and I woke up like 8 a.m. on Saturday, and I knew I had to bust it down to the Richmond Coliseum because I was staying at the Marriott across town. And I had my own car, at the time, thankfully. So I was able to, zip on down there and get to the door before Michelle Jinks closed the door on any of us. Michelle Jinks, she recently was the director of communications for the Celebration Bowl. She was the head of media for the MEAC way back then. And she ran a tight ship. But the good news is we got everything we needed. We got stats, we got like press stuff, like media guides from all the MEAC schools, and we had good food. I mean, we had really good food. So, I mean, Michelle Jinks, she didn't play, but she made sure you were taken care of. So yes, 2005, I get my butt up, I take a shower, I check out of my hotel, and I think I hit somebody's car on the way out. 20 years later, I'm still thinking about that because I know it was a green Cadillac. If you had a green Cadillac and you may have had a little bit of a Mitsubishi Diamante rubbed off, I'm sorry. It was time for me to get out and get to the Coliseum. But yeah, back then the MEAC championship game used to come on at 11 a.m. True story. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. But yeah, I mean, we got to start figuring out ways that are going to get our kids to get the competition that they want. But at the same time, we can't risk the health and safety and the well-being of our schools, because that's the big thing. College is about education. Sports is important, yes, but education is the big thing. And that's something that MEAC schools, the SWAC schools are going to, A&T, Hampton, Tennessee State are going to have to figure out in short order. TMB says, interesting absence is Coach Moten at NCCU. He should be able to do classes up. Well, yeah, because I mean, never forget, North Carolina Central and Duke played in the secret game 80 years ago. This was back when Jim Crow was in full effect, and they had to play, and Duke and North Carolina Central had to play each other undercover. So, they have a history, an important history. So yeah, Coach Moten not being a part of that shocks me. But yes, I get what, again, this is big for Howard. If they can at least do well against Niagara and not embarrass themselves against Duke, then they'll probably be in the MEAC title picture again this year. Honestly, they were in the MEAC title picture this year. South Carolina State just played out of their mind in that semifinal. Crazy thing, man. I mean, that's the thing about tournament play. You have to show up and be bright. And if you have an off night, it could be your last night. That's really what it boils down to. But yeah, shouts out to Howard for undertaking this little adventure with Duke, and I hope it goes well for them. I'm going to talk about something else. Moving on to the next topic, there was something that I found very interesting that we ran on HBCU Sports this morning, and that was Michael Vick was at Fanatics Fest in New York City over the weekend, and he was interviewed by someone from the Philadelphia Inquirer who, because of course, if you guys are not familiar, Norfolk State and Delaware State will be playing at Lincoln Financial Field on Thursday, October 30th. I will be in the building naturally. And very much looking forward to seeing Coach Vic versus Coach Jack at the link. Hopefully they'll have had some wins by then. Maybe it'll even be for one of the top two spots in the MEAC by the time we get to October 30th. Who knows? But yeah, this reporter asked Coach Vic if he if he wanted to attend Norfolk State as a kid, and this is what Coach Vic had to say. I grew up watching Norfolk State, not aspiring to go to Norfolk State as a school because I knew my direction in order to make it to the NFL. But my coaches and Pop Warner used to take us to Norfolk State games, and I remember the game was just exciting. It was a great culture, good people, and they really seemed like they love football. And people are probably going to take that comment the wrong way, but I'm going to tell you, I do not have a problem with it. I do not have a problem with it. Because if we're being completely honest, these kids, from certain generations, like my generation, like for me, an HBCU was the only way I was ever going to, go to college, because my mom drilled that in me from the time I was in grade school. Like, she used to wear those Homie the Clown shirts, get my knowledge from a white college. I don't think so. So, she took me to Delaware State games. I got sent on a college tour of HBCUs up and down the South when I was 16 years old. It was the only way I was going to go. And I ended up at Delaware State, back in my backyard. Full disclosure, my dream school was Hampton. Yes, it was. I wanted to be a Hampton Pirate so damn bad, y'all. I even started wearing blue as a regular color during my last 2 years of high school. And it's a good thing Wilmington, Delaware doesn't have a serious gang culture, because people would have asked me, what set you claim, boy? And I'm like, I'm just wearing blue because I want to be a Hampton Pirate. But things didn't work out that way. I had a tough senior year. I ended up going to community college for a little bit, ended up at Delaware State. No regrets, though. But yes, my dream school, believe it or not, was to be a Hampton Pirate. But yes. Can you guys still hear me? Because I see that my Wi-Fi is acting dumb. Let me know if y'all can still hear me or see me or anything, because man, Comcast is terrible. Comcast is terrible. That's all I got. So I'm just gonna wait this out. All right. Looks like I got my bars back. So can you guys? Okay. Christopher Duke says I'm cool. All right. Never mind. Pause. So flip that. But yes, Hampton was my dream school. And yeah, Adam does too. Yeah. Shout out to Adam Spencer, Hampton Pirate. So yes, Hampton was my dream school. But all of these schools are going to have to figure out, going back to what Mike Vick said. A lot of athletes got that in their head early from coaches, trainers, people in their family circle, that you can't go to an HBCU and still get that same whatever. And it sucks, because before, integration and desegregation and all of that, HBCU athletes were making professional sports all the time. I mean, one of the greatest baseball players of all time, Lou Brock, went to Southern. You can look at Walter Payton, Jackie Slater, Robert Brazile. They were all teammates at Jackson State. In fact, Robert Brazile is getting a statue in his hometown of Mobile, Alabama. The same Mobile, Alabama that gave us Henry Louis Aaron. So, I mean, you look at the NBA, the Knicks, we talked about Dick Barnett passing away a little while ago. Dick Barnett went to Tennessee State. Well, it was Tennessee A&I at the time. And Willis Reed went to Grambling. They were the two biggest pieces of the Knicks championship teams in 1970 and 1973. So before we got into this whole thing about, desegregation and integration and all of that, our HBCUs were turning out professional athletes like that. I'll never forget one of my favorite comedy routines is from Don D.C. Curry, aka Uncle Elroy. He said the civil rights movement wasn't about, it was about we shall overcome, not we shall come over. And I think that's what really kind of messed up, black education in this country as a whole, is that everybody was like, we just want to hold hands with white kids, go to school with white kids. No, we just want everything that white schools have in terms of resources, because separate but equal was a thing. And anybody who went to school in those days can tell you equal was a falsehood. So I get why Coach Vic would say that, because it was probably drilled in him early on that you're not going to be able to get to the NFL if you go to Norfolk State, or you go to Hampton, or you go to Virginia State, or St. Paul's, which was open back then. But I don't have a problem with him saying that, because I know it's not coming from a place of neglect. I know it's not coming from a place of, what's the word I'm looking for here? I'll figure it out later. We know it's not coming from a negative place. It's just that it's what these athletes are taught. Like, if you're a great athlete, you're gonna wait for those PWI Power 4 offers, because those are the ones that are supposed to get you seen by pro scouts. And I get it, but I don't have a problem with Coach Vic saying that at all. I think it's a fair, sort of statement for him to make, and I think it just tells you how HBCUs have been undercut, not just from a resource or financial perspective, but from a cultural and a reputation perspective. Because HBCUs were always the only place our kids could go. And when we lost that, we lost a lot of the cachet, a lot of the, political and cultural capital that made our schools great. And I mean, maybe we get back to that at some point. I don't know what that looks like, but again, I get why Coach Vic says it. People are probably going to take that wrong when they say, "Oh, he really doesn't want to be at Norfolk State," and I've seen nothing to make me agree with that. I think he wants to be there. I think Deshaun Jackson wants to be at Delaware State, and hopefully they can put some good teams on the field, because both of these teams have been the bottom feeders in the MEAC for a long time. So hopefully that changes. On to our next topic now, and we have a history-making hire at the old North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. That's one name I do remember. A&T was also on my list too as a kid, where I wanted to go. No, that's not it. It's not it, but yes, this is. Say hello to Misha Levister, ladies and gentlemen. She was recently named the golf director and head coach of the A&T men's and women's golf programs, and her list of accomplishments is extensive and it is groundbreaking. She becomes the first woman to coach a men's sport in A&T history. She was the 2023 SWAC Women's Golf Coach of the Year at Prairie View. She was the Virginia State Golf Association. She was the Virginia State Golf Association Golfer of the Year, is what I'm trying to say, in 2004. And that same year, she became the first black woman to win a VSGA state tournament. And when she's a North Carolina Central alum, she won Men's Golfer Rookie of the Year and Men's Player of the Year because, well, Central didn't have a women's golf team at the time. But as you'll see, she started the women's golf program in North Carolina Central. So this is a huge hire for A&T. And I love that a lot of these new hires with respect to women, we're getting younger with respect to who we hire to run our institutions, sports programs. Because, I mean, these kids today, they respond to a certain type of leadership. And I'm not saying that old school leadership is bad. I'm just saying, what did Big G say on The Wire? The thing about the old days is they the old days. Like, you're not going to be able to just, scream and holler and discipline these kids with burpees and sprints and all of that. I don't even think, are we allowed to call them suicides anymore? Because I don't think we can call them suicides anymore. But yeah, we used to run. I mean, anybody who remembers hearing On the Line as an athlete knows exactly what I'm talking about. When your coach says On the Line, you just like, because you about to run. Some people did hill climbers, some people did stairs, but some kids, but I think you need younger coaches to respond to younger minds. And I think, getting someone the caliber of Coach Levister at A&T, just kind of speaks to how a lot of schools are starting to embrace this newer generation. Sort of Say, all right, if we want to keep these kids, if we want to get these kids and keep these kids, we got to give them the leadership that works for them. And I'm not saying that younger coaches can't, lead and discipline and lead by example and, impart discipline on kids. It just looks different from what those of us of a certain age are used to. Like, again, I went to high school in the late 90s. I did not play any college sports because I was a terrible athlete. But shouts out to Silas Edward McMorris. I hate that Prairie View A&M lost her. Yeah, it sounds like a big loss because, I mean, her resume is top shelf. But yes, these kids, they respond to things differently. And that doesn't make them wrong. That doesn't make us right. That doesn't make us wrong. It doesn't make them right. It just means that kids respond to different sorts of leadership. And that's what's going to happen now. I mean, the younger the athletes, the younger the coaches you need, because that you can't have too wide of a generation yet. You cannot have too wide of a generation yet. Like, I could coach now. You wouldn't want me to coach, but I could coach because I'm 43. I've lived through my share of things, and I can probably tell a kid, hey, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. But if you want to get better, here's what you do here, here's what you should do there, and and all of that stuff. See, Pathfinder's 522 knows. And on the line, boy, I don't miss those days at all. I do not. And I run 3 days a week now, but I run slowly. I don't run fast. You'll never catch me sprinting. You'll never catch me sprinting unless there's a dog chasing me or there's bullets in the area. I don't run for speed. I run for endurance and distance. So don't ask me to go on the line these days because I'm just going to fall out after the first couple steps. Just let me warm up first. But yes, I mean, the younger the leadership, the more kids you keep because they see how a younger coach can relate to them than someone who is, say, a baby boomer or a baby Gen X, or like, it just is what it is. I mean, it's unfortunate, but younger coaches, find a way to reach these kids. And I think it's important that, we have that conversation because it's always crazy to say that you hear people say, well, I'm not your friend. I'm not your friend. I'm your parent. And I get that. I was raised by just such a person, and I don't mind it now. I mean, me and my mom are actually really close now. But back when it was parent and son, mom and son, it didn't work that way. It just didn't work that way. But now, I mean, kids, I mean, they respond to different types of leadership. And I mean, if you get someone, as young as Coach LaVista, you get people, young coaches like Jazz Turner, the women's basketball coach at Delaware State. I think she just turned 30. If she's over 30, it's not by much. So, I mean, the younger the coaches, the more kids are interested in your program. I believe. This is my personal opinion. And you guys can, when you catch this on YouTube, if you're catching this in the back end on YouTube, feel free to let me know what you think. Do you think younger coaches can help keep today's athletes at HBCUs? Would love to know what you think. But yes, I wanted to make note of that hire because I felt like let's just look at the resume again. I mean, just look, y'all. First woman to coach a men's sport in A&T history, SWAC Golf Coach of the Year for the women, Virginia State Golf Association. Oh, she also went pro. She played on the LPGA Futures Tour. She ended up giving that up when her father passed away in 2014, but she still ended up coaching. She was the first Black woman to win a Virginia State Golf Association state tournament. Again, won the CIAA Men's Golf Rookie of the Year and Player of the Year at Central because Central didn't have a golf team at the time. Then she started a women's golf team at her alma mater. And now she's at A&T running their golf program. So these are the type of people that our schools need to hire more often. And they're out there. Like it's off the beaten path. I mean, we don't need to keep hiring retreads for a bunch of things. Basketball and football are absolutely guilty of the retread game. Make no mistake about it. There have been times when I've seen coaches get hired that I knew had trouble at other HBCUs. And I'm like, okay. All right. If that's what you want to do. But you got to start some out the box thinking with respect to this leadership thing. That's why I think that Mike Vick at Norfolk State and Deshaun Jackson at Delaware State can work because it's something different. Because Delaware State has had a hard time with football coaches. I mean, we had a Delaware State Hall of Famer, a MEAC Hall of Famer as coach of the football team. Didn't get very far. We hired a guy who won the MEAC with Morgan State in 2014. That was a disaster. We hired a guy who was a D1 coordinator. He acted like he was too good to be at Delaware State when he only won 3 games in 3 years. So you got to think outside the box sometimes. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try something different. It just doesn't. You got to do something different every once in a blue moon. And this is a big hire for A&T, and I give them major props for that because, it's always hard to find good young coaches that are interested in HBCUs, and you have someone who is HBCU born and bred. And she has, done the work and is coming back to North Carolina to, do some great things at A&T. So kudos to Dr. Earl Hilton and the A&T sports administration for that hire. We got one more topic before we head on out of here. I know this feels like a brief show, but we've covered a lot of ground. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground in these 30 minutes. But, speaking of the transfer portal, remember earlier when I was talking about how, schools can woo other kids now? And there's an old saying, nothing succeeds like success. And Howard University softball, if you guys remember, I had an interview with head coach Tori Tyson after they won the MEAC and were heading down to play Duke in the NCAA softball tournament. And she talked about how hard it was to recruit because she doesn't have a softball field. She doesn't have, certain things, but she still manages to get great players. Well, Coach Tyson managed to get the greatest player in the MEAC last year. Ms. Taylor Ames Alexander, the MEAC Player of the Year, who was doing crazy yard work at South Carolina State, is now a Bison. She won the MEAC Player of the Year last year, led the conference in batting average, hit 8 home runs, drove in 43, and she had one of the greatest one-day performances in a tournament setting that I can think of. I was covering the MEAC tournament for HBCU Sports, and of course, I was interested to see how my alma mater, Delaware State, was going to go because they were the third seed. And Taylor Ames Alexander put on a show on Friday. She beat I can't remember if it was either Coppin State, Morgan State, or Norfolk State. It was one of those three. In the first game, because they had South Carolina State had to win twice on Friday to advance to play Howard in the MEAC championship game on that Saturday. So she hit 2 home runs in the first game. South Carolina State wins that game. Delaware State goes ahead in the second game, the game that South Carolina State has to win. And who hits the go-ahead game-winning home run? Taylor Ames Alexander. So for Coach Tyson to get a MEAC Player of the Year to come to Howard is huge because I think it's gonna be hard, but I feel like if we can keep kids in conference instead of having them transfer out, I still think that's a win. I think that's a win. And this is a story that I enjoy talking about because I'm a sports history nerd, as you guys can probably tell. So, I think about how back when the NBA and the ABA were fighting for players. I don't know who is old enough to remember the American Basketball Association in this particular chat, but yeah, there was a time in the 60s and 70s when the ABA was fighting with the NBA for players. And the ABA had a kid at the time of a junior from UMass named Julius Winfield Irving II. You may know him better as Dr. J. So Doc had just finished his rookie year with the Virginia Squires, and he realized that his contract wasn't paying him what it should have. So he was going to jump leagues. He was going to go from the ABA to the NBA. And he showed up at Atlanta Hawks training camp. And this is when the Atlanta Hawks had the late, great Pistol Pete Maravich and the late Lou Hudson. Imagine Pete Maravich, Dr. J, Sweet Lou, and I think Walter Bellamy was still on the team at that time. He was one of the biggest centers in the league. He was one of Wilt's closest competitors. So imagine that power four. The Hawks probably would have had better luck in the 70s had that held up. But the ABA sued the NBA for a breach of contract, and Doc had to go back to the ABA with the Squires. So he spends one more year with the Squires, and the New York Nets, they were the New York Nets at the time. They went from New York, they went to New Jersey, then they went back to Brooklyn. They had a new owner named Roy Bowe, and he said, I can pay Doc $3 million to keep him in the ABA. And the Virginia Squires said, sold, you take him. So they sold Dr. J's contract to the Nets, and it killed the Virginia Squires as a professional basketball franchise, but it kept the ABA around a little while longer. So as long as you keep your players in-house, it feels like that's a good thing. And I think as long as Taylor Ames Alexander, a softball player of considerable talent stays in the MEAC. I mean, it hurts South Carolina State, obviously, but it makes Howard that much better. And she's still in the MEAC. So I think, that's a win. I don't know how much that can happen, but I would love to see more kids transferring, staying in conference instead of going out. Like if there's a way that we can find a way that, a lot of MEAC, I mean, I'm not saying MEAC schools need to work together. I mean, that's the last thing. I mean, well, I'm saying they should, just a common courtesy, but I don't think you need to have, player trades in conference. But I mean, I feel like if a kid can go from one MEAC school to another, one SWAC school to another, one CIAA school to another, one SIAC school to another, it doesn't hurt. But if we start seeing these kids in Conference USA, the Coastal, and Power Fours, then that's when we really start getting hurt. So I don't mind that, this young lady is staying in the MEAC, even though it just makes Howard that much more unbeatable. Geez, Coach Tyson, can you save some championships for the rest of the conference? I mean, Delaware State was this close to seeing y'all last year. I don't know if that happens now. I don't know if that happens now. But I do think that, that's probably just going to be one more of those portal NIL things that HBCUs are going to have to work through. Like, all right, do we really want to sort of, start farming kids to different schools within the conference to keep them in the conference? If it helps our survival, that might have to be the case. But I don't think that, I think losing kids out of conference hurts more than keeping them in conference. I mean, yeah, it's going to stink for South Carolina State to go to Howard next year to the Nationals youth field, or have Howard come down to their field and see their former teammate who, well, I'm not going to say she carried them to the MEAC championship game. I mean, she was their best player by far, clearly. But to watch your best player and your best teammate, on the Howard team, that's sort of like a dream team at this point, because Coach Tyson does get great players. Yeah, it's tough, but this is just another one of those instances where the new age of college athletics just leaves a lot to be desired and hammered out with terms of where these kids can go, how they go there, and what they do. It's hard, man. No one has the answers to this. No matter what they tell you, nobody has the answers to this. And the answer to the question, of course, is what do HBCUs do in this new era of house versus NCAA, NIL, portal, paying players? Nobody has a clear-cut answer. Not myself, not Ken Rashad, not Kendrick Marshall, not Jared Hoffman, not Steve Gaither over at HBCU Game Day, not any of these commissioners. They trying though. Not any of the ADs or the coaches. Nobody knows what this is going to bring. But what I do know is that if we work together, we can find a way to mitigate the madness and keep our schools competitive and keep our schools in business, which is going to be the ultimate goal at the end of the day. And that's going to do it for this edition of the MEAC More with your boy, Chris Stevens. Greatly appreciate y'all for watching. As always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel on YouTube, become a level 1 or level 2 member for the neat and tidy sum of $4.99 a month, which is less than a cup of coffee these days. Sally Struthers would be really upset if she found out a cup of coffee is more than $4.99 now. Because remember when she used to do those infomercials, for just the price of a cup of coffee a day, you could feed a young child in Africa. You probably can't even we can't even feed ourselves for $4.99 these days. But anyway, for $4.99 a month, the HBCU Sports become a level 1 and level 2 member of this YouTube channel. You can get all the HBCU Sports that's fit to print and broadcast, as we like to give it to you. Don't forget, you can follow us on the Musty app, TikTok, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky. Just search for HBCU Sports. If you are interested in donating, you can go to the Zelle app and hit donate at hbcusports.com. Put your coins in that way. You can also go directly to the website and go to hbcusports.com/donate and drop some money there. And don't forget, the second annual HBCU Sports Awards is happening Saturday, July 26th. We honor the best and brightest in HBCU sports in 2024-25. And then that will serve as a bridge. We will say goodbye to 24-25 and begin 25-26. We'll start talking about SWAC Media Day, MEAC Media Day, preview the CIAA and SIAC football seasons. And don't forget, on this channel this week, you can also check out the Better Than Less Than podcast with my colleague Jared Hoffman. He will be covering everything Division II. That means the SIAC and the CIAA, including West Virginia State, who's in the Mountain East, and Lincoln University in Missouri. I said Missouri. I meant Missouri. I mean, I've heard people say Missouri, but I meant Missouri. And of course, the HBCU, AC, and the NAIA. And this Friday, it's the Sweat page with Ken Rashad and Kendrick Marshall. You know, those two argue like Kornheiser and Wilbon. So you can expect them to do the very same when discovering the best in SWAC sports. So thank y'all for watching the MEAC and More. Greatly appreciate y'all. Until the next time we speak, y'all take care of yourselves and each other. Okay. All right. Now take care of yourselves and each other. We gone.